I want to read you something that you said about me in one of your comments. From his other videos, I thought he was a curious, insightful, philosophy-loving dude. But rather than showing curiosity and asking how problems would be solved, as I have been doing in my videos to him, he's been making truth statements and assuming that I've never thought of his objections and that no one has come up with a solution to them. This has been a far less pleasant debate than I was expecting. I can assure you I'm still a philosophy-loving dude. But if the only reason you liked me or thought that I was insightful was because you didn't know I disagreed with you, then I think you need to reconsider what it means to be a philosophy-loving dude.
Oh, my deepest apologies, Jonathan. I had no idea that I was committing such a grotesque straw man in my last video. I have no idea where I could have gotten the idea that you think that constitutions limit government, and it was inappropriate of me to ask for an example of such a thing ever occurring in human history.
Stargazer, your challenge was to find a government that was limited by its constitution. A constitution can only prescribe limitations. It is not going to reach out a papery appendage and wrap itself around the agents of governments and say, "No, you can't do that." If I made that argument at some point, you let me know. Now, you showed a particularly long-winded cut of me rambling on about something. And what was really irksome is that where you cut off was not 1 second before the part in the video where I said, that's not the case. Certainly there can be corruption and coercion and injustice in any government. Well, so much for that then. But I want to make this very clear. For you to believe that the state is something that just does what it pleases, or in your words,
"Oh look, I happen to find drugs on you. Oh look, you happen to be gay and you're claiming to be married. Oh look, you're wearing a red shirt. Oh look, I think you're a terrorist." You just need to find some sort of excuse. None of these things are in the Constitution. Constitutions don't limit government.
And you've said this in one form or another throughout this conversation, then you must believe that the state can only operate on whim. Killing people because they have a red shirt on is not based on axiom, it's based on whim. It's not justifiable, it's because it's preference. It's government by preference. That's what you say the state is. My argument has been from the start that the state has a choice between governing from preference, or what I've been calling whim, or from axioms that arise objectively from the formation of government, of any government. If the state has a choice to govern from axiom, then we cannot properly understand the state as a body that just runs around doing this.
Oh look, you're wearing a red shirt.
And if that image of the state is all you or your anti-statist friends have to support your anti-statism, you have failed to justify your position, since that doesn't account for all forms of government. See, I can do edits too. If we're clear on that, I want to do a little bit more film editing here and talk about some less pressing issues.
In my very first response to you, Jonathan, I included in my sidebar a number of links that included essays and books and so on, that went into great detail on how such conflicts would be resolved in a stateless society. Resources which you appear to not have taken the briefest look at.
Stargazer, there's a lot of garbage in the world. Which do you suppose I should read first? I have no reason to read anybody's articles or books if their adherents don't make good arguments. The only reason I would read someone's work is if I repeatedly lose arguments to people of that particular school of thought, which, for people who are interested here as a side note, is the only reason I've read Aristotle or Plato's account of Socrates. for you or your buddy Buddhagem or anyone else to thump their anti-statist books and say, read ours because we are right, is just being dogmatic, and I don't have time for that. Argue what your books argue. If you can't, then your books are probably garbage. So here's one example of your attempt to argue what your books argue.
Now, there's an infinite number of ways this could be dealt with in the absence of a state, but I will mention you two. The first way is that we could agree on a mode of coercion ahead of time in the contract. So in the event of violation of our contract, we could say that one of us owes the other $10,000 to be enforced by the third-party arbitrator. We could say that in the event of violation, one of us gets shot in the head. Could go any span of enforcement.
You suppose that if I'm inclined to break a deal with you, I will somehow not be inclined to also break the part of our deal that said that you have the right to blow my head off in the event that I break the deal with you. Good luck with that.
Now, yes, in our interaction, you screw me over. You violate the contract. For whatever reason, we didn't agree on some mode of enforcement in the contract, so I get screwed over. Fine. Going forward, from this violation of your contract, your reputation is going to suffer enormously. I imagine that in a stateless society there would be private companies that would document violations of contract and give people contract ratings in the same way we have credit ratings. If you have a reputation for not paying back your loans, you get a very low credit rating. And when you go to a bank to try to get a loan, the bank is less likely to give you a loan if you have a low credit rating. Similarly, if you have a reputation for violating your contracts, when you try to form your next contract with somebody, they're going to look up your contract rating, and they're going to say, no, you're not going to be able to get your apartment, you're not going to be able to get your loan, you're not going to be able to get your job, whatever. So this is how people are incentivized to be trustworthy and respect their contracts rather than violating them.
Now say that this private business files a report on someone in error or by deliberate fraud. How might a person go about clearing his name? As you said, the person would have to find an arbiter that both the private business and the person wrongly accused would agree on. And what if the business agrees on none? After all, they're a big, respected company, and you are but one measly person who is disputing a bad report, which I assume everyone would try to do, even if they received such a report, regardless if the report was justified or not. Are we supposed to believe that the business has a responsibility to respond to every complaint? If we do, then who would enforce that? What would keep you from slipping through the cracks completely? The only way justice could be served in this situation is if we suppose the private business agrees on an arbiter that they know would be fair. That is, an arbiter that they could expect to rule that they have committed fraud. Good luck with that, too. So no, Stargazer, I'm sorry. With all the respect in the world, your books and articles don't look very interesting at this point. I leave this with you, and I'll wrap this up. We don't call government a necessary evil just so we can shut people up about questioning its validity. The state is necessary because if everyone is trying to keep track of everyone else, nobody is, in the end, accountable to anyone at all. The necessity of government is it provides us with a place where the buck stops, disagreements are ruled on, and people can get on with their life.